Hey everybody, how's it going? It looks like another one of these 2011 visions has played out again this year. You probably heard about the Hawaiian volcanic lava that is reaching the village of Pahoa this week. It says in this article the lava reached inhabited areas on Tuesday morning, which was October 28th, right here. And this CNN article shows the path of the lava, which has been flowing since June, according to this. And on Tuesday, it set fire to a woodshed on a residential property. And this article basically says the same thing. It says on Tuesday, the lava reached the first two residential properties where it burned down a farm shed and a pile of tires. So this lava flow began in June and finally reached the first residential properties of the town on Tuesday, October 28th, which was our watch for specifically an island volcano, which is what we were shown in this vision right here in 2011. And it's exactly what we were watching for this time last year when the Sicily Island volcano erupted. So it does appear that this is playing out again this year. But I mean, as I've said before, I'm not sure what the point to all of this is yet, except that the proof of all these visions and dreams that have come true after they were uploaded to YouTube, and the movies and television that is seemingly predicting events before it happens, some of the synchronicities that go back hundreds of years, and the Bible predictions that go back thousands of years in some cases, may indicate that we're living in a simulated reality. So let's just establish, first of all, it's not a question of whether or not the dreams and visions come true after they're uploaded to YouTube. We know they do. That has been proven. That's a fact. It's also not a question of whether or not movies and television depict real future events. We know they do at this point. That's also been proven. And it's not a question of whether or not certain predictions in the Bible have come true hundreds or even thousands of years after the writings were published. We know they have. That has also been proven. But the question I have now is why? I mean, how are these things even possible? How can so many people throughout history see the future if the future hasn't happened yet? This is another example of prophecies of Merlin published in 1135. Predicted the founding of the colony of Virginia, predicted the use of cell phones, just things like this. There are tons of things like this. How is this even possible? If the future hasn't happened yet, then how have people been seeing the future? If time is linear, the way we've been led to believe for so long, then it should not be possible to see the future. Yet, it's been proven again and again that it is possible. So, one explanation of this is that time is not linear. In other words, we're not moving along day by day in a forward motion along a straight timeline. And actually, physics already agrees on that point. That straight timeline in physics is known as the first dimension. Right here, a straight line. So you start off with a point or a singularity, then that point becomes a straight line, and that's the first dimension, which is length. Then that straight line becomes a flat plane. That's the second dimension of width. And then that flat plane becomes a cube, and that's the third dimension of height. And those are the three most common dimensions dealt with in basic mathematics that we all learned in school: length, width, and height, or coordinates x, y, and z. And this is a good animation right here. The point right here represents 0 dimensions, and that turns into a straight line, which is 1 dimension, which turns into a square, which is the second dimension. And then, sorry, that turns into a cube, which is the third dimension. So most physicists today believe that time is the fourth dimension. And they often depict that fourth dimension as a hypercube or a tesseract right here. So there's no question at this point that time is not a straight line. It's not one-dimensional, far from it. It's at the very minimum four-dimensional. So that may explain why quote-unquote future events can be seen in the past, the quote-unquote past, because maybe they're not actually future events at all. They're just events within the dimension of time that we haven't traveled to yet, but can see from a distance. You know what I mean? I don't know, but I disagree with those who believe that the fourth dimension is a hypercube, because if that were true, then the cube would just go on forever, and that's kind of like what this drawing represents here. I disagree with that. And as you can see in this animation right here, the predominant belief right now among physicists, from what I can tell, is that the third dimensional cube simply expands to form a fourth dimensional cube within a cube, like you see right here. And then it just continues on that way all the way up to the 10th dimension, which many scientists believe is the total number of possible dimensions. I think string theory says there's 11 dimensions, but anyway, it's something like this is one of the ideas of it. Every time they add a dimension, they just expand the cube, and that doesn't seem right to me. To me, the fourth dimension would more accurately be visualized as a sphere, a spinning sphere. So the third dimension is a cube, and the fourth dimension of time, it seems to make more sense as a spinning sphere. I mean, that might explain why we measure time based on the movements of our spherical planet orbiting the spherical sun. So if time consists of four dimensions instead of one, then how does it work exactly? I mean, if the past is not moving into the future in a straight line, which physicists agree it's not. So if it's not moving into the future in a straight line, then how is it moving? Well, maybe it's cyclical, moving more like a spiral. So some people can peak at the rung of the spiral just above from, for example, from this level right here. Maybe they can peak up to what's going on up here, although the event won't actually happen until we move all the way around the rung of the spiral. I don't know. I'm actually, just to let you guys know, I'm actually writing a book on that. It's not like the last book I wrote at all. It's different. It's a book I've been meaning to write for years, and I just need to finish it. So I'm actually not going to be posting weekly videos for a while, so I can finish that. It's just something that I really need to do. But anyway, you guys know I have a Christian background, and I've come to realize over the years, even though I don't belong to any religion, that there is profound truth in the biblical text, although there are lies in there too. I mean, the Bible itself warns about that. It says those seeking power would alter the sacred texts in order to validate their own behavior and also to control the population. But instead of coming to the conclusion that God is evil or that all religious people are irrational, I've learned that the biblical texts hold a deep, profound message about our reality if you stick to the truth within it. And Jesus said he is the truth. So one way to follow the truth is to, for example, just to start with the accurate predictions that the prophets of the Bible made that can be proven objectively. I mean, events that played out exactly the way the text predicted they were. I mean, if you're a rational person, then that might be the validity you need to know that these texts really are extraordinary. If you're a compassionate person, then the teachings of Jesus might be what proves to you the validity of some of these writings. But I'm approaching this awareness recently that there's something even more profound that Jesus talked about that is described in the depth of these texts. I mean, Jesus made some very profound statements that I admit I have never addressed in the past because they just didn't make sense to me. Like this one in Mark 11, Peter said to Jesus basically, look at that fig tree you cursed, it died. And Jesus said to him, have faith in God. Whoever says to a mountain, be removed and cast into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that it will happen, will have whatever he or she says. So basically, whatever you desire when you pray, I mean, it says right here, whatever you desire when you pray, believe that you will receive them and you will have them. So I always thought this verse must be symbolic code of some kind, and that and some people will look at this quote as proof that we create our own reality. Well, I don't believe that. I've told you that before. I do not believe we have that much power to literally change this reality. That's just my own personal belief based on my experiences and also based on rational thought. It just doesn't make sense to me. I do agree that some people have more power to change their lives than they realize. So philosophies like the law of attraction can be helpful to some people, but they can also be extremely harmful because some of these ideologies imply that whatever goes wrong in your life, it's your fault. And that's clearly not true. I mean, we know that if a plane crashes into your house, it's most likely not your fault. So while some people may have more control over their life than they think they do, it's also possible other people have less control over their life than they think. But the question is, how much control do we actually have in this world, and how much of it is controlled by outside forces? I mean, did Jesus literally mean what he said, that we have the ability to move a mountain into the sea if we really believe we can? Or was that just another lie inserted into the text? Well, if we look to science for the answer, this is where it gets really weird, because scientists are now discussing whether or not our reality is a simulation. In other words, they are actually, in some cases, trying to scientifically prove or disprove the theory that we exist in a computer simulation, a kind of holodeck of a future civilization. And this right here is an experiment some physicists tried to conduct at the University of Washington. Okay, now check out the date of this article before we go into it. November 9th. And that is just another synchronicity right there, because I just found this article this week. And last week we were talking about all the meaningful coincidences surrounding that date. It's also listed on the side right here, November 9th, and the date here is November 12th. So that's what we were talking about last, all the meaningful coincidences surrounding that date. And I don't think this is all of them right here. Just keep running into that date. It's so weird. But anyway, basically, if I understood this correctly, these physicists at the University of Washington think they might be able to prove or disprove the theory that we live in a simulation by creating a miniature environment that they think matches the observed laws of the universe. And if the photons behave a certain way within their miniature replica of the universe, well, then we must be living in an enclosed simulation or something like that. And then they, of course, conclude that they weren't able to create an accurate miniature universe and so could not prove or disprove the theory at this time. But the problem I had with this was they didn't even mention that if we are in a simulation, then the laws of nature would be programmed into it, not actually real things. Okay, I'm out of time for part 1. The link to part 2 is below.